a safe space for St. Louis to learn about soccer. This is Soccer 101 with Michelle Smallman and Moon Valjean.
Welcome into Soccer 101. Michelle Smallman and Moon Valjean are here with you. And Moon, we have a lot of soccer stuff to get into today. We have a new MLS Cup champion. We have a lot of things happening with St. Louis City SC. And let's jump right into it. How you been?
I've been well. How have you been?
I've been well as well. Thank you for asking. I also want to shout out everyone who's been sending us emails to Soccer 101. The response that we've gotten so far has been amazing. We are actually going to answer one of the questions that we got via email later in the podcast, so stick around for that. But people can always get involved with us on social media, or they can email us at asksoccer101@gmail.com.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting episode because this is a busy week. This last weekend we had, like you said, a new MLS champion. It's a fresh face too. The team's only been around for a couple seasons here, and going into our season later this week, we have all sorts of draft information. So we'll get into that later. I think that's touched on in the email segment. But let me just break down the story that happened over the weekend. The MLS Cup 2022. The final was probably one of the best Major League Soccer games ever. LAFC, that's the Los Angeles Football Club, won it in a PK, a penalty shootout, after a wild 3-3 finish in extra time. It's the first MLS Cup in LAFC's brief history since they launched in 2018. This is the one you see Will Ferrell and Magic Johnson. This is the LAFC team. It's black and gold. Now, the game got the penalties thanks to the heroics of Wales superstar Gareth Bale. You may recognize that name if you've watched any sort of international play with Wales or any sort of Spanish or English Premier League, because Gareth Bale was like absolute freaking superstar, one of the fastest guys on the field for Tottenham Hotspur in England for a while. And then in like a record-breaking transfer fee, I forget what it was. It was like 80 million something euros or even more. He went over to Real Madrid. Kind of did great, kind of didn't. He was a former left back, I believe, and then he went striker, and now he's in the MLS, and he made an impact right at the end of the game. Pretty amazing, with LAFC down to 10 men and trailing 3-2 in the dying minutes of extra time. And we'll let you know what extra time is in case you're asking about that. Gareth Bale rose up to head home a 3-3 equalizer to send the match to penalties. Now, in the shootout, even more drama happened because it was a backup LAFC goalkeeper, John McCarthy. This is a native of Philadelphia and a former Union player who came in. Yeah, this is an amazing story for this guy. He came in for an injured LAFC starter, stopped 2 against his former club, and that was enough to earn him the MLS Cup MVP honors. So this guy comes in as a backup and becomes the MVP.
That's incredible. I mean, how many storylines could you ask for? I'm sure MLS was so thrilled with this being the championship game, because you have former European stars getting involved. You have a game that's highly contested that goes into extra time and down to PKs. And then you have a backup coming in to be the hero. The drama, Moon, the absolute drama.
It played like a freaking movie. And if you go back and even just watch the highlights and see the excitement in the crowd, and you kind of get to learn the game a little bit. And this had a lot to learn. If somebody's new to the game or they're new to the system, they're going to go, wait a second. This guy said stoppage time, and now this guy said extra time. Does that mean overtime? And then how do PKs work? And then I'm sure, if they got somebody that's a real soccer fan, they're going to be chirping about how the MLS used to do shootouts, which was totally bizarre, but it can be confusing. So let's go through real quick, if that's okay, Michelle, before we kind of dive into emails or any of that. Let's just go tell you the basics on how the halves work, how the minutes work, what is stoppage time, what is extra time, and how and why you would go to penalty kicks and what that system is all about. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely, because you're right. This is Soccer 101. It's a safe space for St. Louis to learn about soccer. And even if people from St. Louis who aren't really big into soccer tuned in to the MLS Cup just to kind of dip their toe in and see what was happening, and they were enthralled by all the drama and excitement that was happening, that doesn't mean that they necessarily know everything that was going down. So I love that idea, Moon. Let's just take it down to the most remedial level and talk about regular time and extra time. So you want to take the ball and dribble with it here, if you will?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. So a standard soccer match is 90 minutes. 90 minutes of action separated by one 15-minute halftime. That's two 45-minute halves. And regardless of injuries or substitutions or goals or somebody kicking the ball into the crowd, the clock just keeps on ticking. That's why you're going to see that clock not stop. There's no stopping that. This is where stoppage time comes in for each of the aforementioned possibilities. If the ball's out for a little bit or somebody's down for a few minutes, time is understandably lost, but the timer, the clock doesn't stop. So it's the referee's job to calculate it all that time and add it back in. You'll see at the end of the first half, when it hits 45 minutes, the clock will keep going, and you'll see an extra official on the sideline hold up a sign with like a red 4. That is how many minutes has been determined to have been lost during the half, and that is the stoppage time. Then the referee will kind of watch his clock, and right around that time, when the ball is not near the goal mouth or something, he will blow his whistle 3 times to end the half. That is stoppage time. Now, at the end of both halves, at the end of 90 minutes and at the end of the stoppage time, well, let's say it's 5 additional minutes of stoppage time. It's 95 minutes. The ball is somewhat dead. The ref blows the whistle. And this is some sort of cup match or playoff match or something where it cannot end at a tie. If the game is tied, then we are going to go into extra time. Extra time is basically in hockey. What do we call it in hockey? Overtime? Going to overtime?
Overtime, yeah.
So that's extra time, and it is split into 2 15-minute halves.
2 45-minute halves, 90 minutes total stoppage time. And then if we're going into extra time, it's 2 15-minute extra time periods, right?
That's right. And to be clear, it doesn't matter if one of the teams scores during this period. The 2 halves are played until the completion. So it's not a golden goal, first goal wins sort of thing.
It isn't first goal wins at all. You're going to play the entirety of the 2 15-minute extra time periods.
Yep. At the end of extra time, if it's still a draw, we go to PKs, the heart-pounding penalty shootout. In the penalty shootout, you're going to see it's only the shooter and it's only the goalie that are allowed in the box. The goalie cannot leave the line until the ball is kicked. You get 5 shots, and it doesn't matter what order. It's not like it has to go striker, midfielder, defender. You can, if your goalie is the best at PKs, you can start him off there. You get 5. At the end of 5, if it's still tied, let's say the goalie saved one for one team and somebody missed it for the other, and it's only 4-4. It just continues till one of the rounds is uneven. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's the 7th round and I score, and Michelle, you're my competitor, and you miss, my team wins.
Yeah, absolutely. So one has to have a greater number of goals than the other.
Yep, that's how it all shook out, and like we said before, that backup goalie, man, absolute hero, and MVP, stopping 2 from his former club. Absolutely amazing, filled with drama. What a year for the MLS Cup, as far as the one right before St. Louis City SC gets to be involved. I mean, that's the way to have it happen, to get people excited.
So much momentum coming out of the MLS, and it's a great time for St. Louis to be joining the league. It's going to be so much fun. But before we get into that a little bit, Moon, I have a question for you. You outlined what regular time is, stoppage time, extra time, the highly dramatic and very entertaining penalty shootout. But a lot of soccer games end in a tie. And I think a lot of American sports fans, that's something that kind of gets stuck in their craw. They don't like that soccer can sometimes end in a tie. So what's your thoughts on that?
When I was a kid, I remember hearing that, and it was a concept that was so very confusing. I remember my dad or whoever it was like, "Oh yeah, it's a draw. They split the points," and I was like, "Wow, that's some horse crap." I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I want to play a game where I'm busting butt and I have to go home not a winner or not a loser. But honestly, being a part of soccer my whole life now and playing in tables that are set up like that, I don't mind it. It's part of the sport. It clearly works really well, especially in table-driven leagues. The English Premier League and La Liga, Bundesliga, and all that. I like it. I like the point system. I like how it works. It's worked like that in hockey in the past. I know they split the points and do a little bit differently now. I understand how it can bother people, but I feel like if people just like put that aside, put that in your pocket for a minute, and don't be upset about it for a little bit, and just kind of get into the other aspects of the sport, I don't think it'll bother you in the long run. I really don't. Yeah,
I know that's something that is really difficult for a lot of new soccer fans to grasp, because it feels very anticlimactic. Like you said, you're busting your butt, you're chanting, you're emotionally invested in the entire match, and then you can just walk away with a 0-0 tie or a 1-1 tie, and it feels a little anticlimactic. But that's one thing I want to encourage new City fans and new soccer fans who are listening to this podcast to try to embrace is we're playing the long game here. We're really trying to play the long game. And even though at the outset that might be a little frustrating, I think you'll get used to it.
That's a good way to put it too. The long game. So like, think about this. Like, there's some. I'm a Manchester United guy, and they've made it rough for me the last couple of years. But there's also other clubs that I like watching. Some like real underdogs that shouldn't even sometimes be playing against the teams that they're playing against, right? And you will see the strategy involved. We talked about, relegation and some different things. So like in a table, you at the end of the season, if you're one of the bottom 3 teams, you're going to get relegated and you're going to go to a lower league. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose players. You're going to lose contracts, all that kind of stuff. So there has been as much drama on the bottom end of tables than there has been on the top. And when you're watching a team that's playing for the long haul, they're playing up against Manchester City or Liverpool or something like that. They will play a particular game, and oh my gosh, in the first 10 minutes, they score a goal. So now they're up 1-0. Now they know that they're up against $1 billion worth of strikers. So they know that their entire game is basically try to prevent this world-class domination team, try to prevent them from scoring as many goals as possible. You're probably going to give up 1 or 2 goals, but now you actually have a chance to hold a draw. So you're almost playing for a draw. There are certain matches where you will watch the drama unfold, and I get it. It's really hard to watch if you're the team that's just trying to score and you're literally up against 10 defenders because they just have 10 defenders in the box. But it can be really exciting to watch a team try to play for a draw. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if they can steal 2 points off of a top dog,
yes,
the drama that puts in both teams' season or momentum can be just as exciting as watching a 7-0 blowout and watch your favorite player get hat tricks. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you just, like I said, put it in your pocket, let the energy of this game kind of get to you and soak in a little bit, have a little bit of moments of osmosis. I'm telling you, it's going to be okay. And the tie thing, the draw, it's not going to bother you. It's not going to bother you for long.
Yeah, you have to think about the macro and the micro.
Yeah. And again, I get it. I'm an intense feller, so I understand the letdown. You go all the way down to the stadium and this and that, and you watch a 0-0 tie. That's painful. I get it, but it doesn't mean that a ton of excitement doesn't happen on the field.
Absolutely. And there's a ton of excitement happening off the field right now for St. Louis City SC Moon. A lot of movement when it comes to players, and we have some news to get through. But first, I want to roll back to our emails, if that's cool with you.
Yes, please.
So off the top, we mentioned it, but please reach out to us. You can follow us on social media. You can reach me at Twitter or Instagram at @MSmallman. You can follow Moon
at Moon Valjean here, MoonValjanhere.
Or you can email both of us at our Gmail account. It's asksoccer101@gmail.com. And again, thank you to so many people who have emailed. We're going to try and work in some of these questions because we know that a lot of people do have questions about soccer and MLS and St. Louis City SC. We know it so much. That's why we started this podcast. But this one popped out at me, Moon, because we've gotten a lot of iterations of this. So I'm just going to select this one from Matt. Matt wants to know, hey, Moon and Michelle, how do we, as in City, get our players? Is it an expansion draft like the Golden Knights or Kraken in the NHL, or do we just sign whoever we want? Do we have anyone already on our team? And I think that that's a very pertinent and timely question, Matt, because right now the trade window is open and there's been a lot of movement for City and a lot of movement around the MLS. So even though City already had some players that were on the roster as of Monday, November 7th, now that the MLS Cup is over following a 2-month roster freeze, different clubs can make additions or adjustments to their rosters, and City has been acquiring some players. And Moon, I know that you have some names for us.
Yeah, we're a part of all these communication emails and all these breaking news things, and I have a few. Now, I'm going to shoot some questions back at you because I'm sort of learning this system as well. There is an expansion draft. It obviously had to wait until after the season was up, so we have some information about that. That's only a few days away. We'll talk about that next week. But St. Louis City SC has acquired midfielder Jared Stroud from Austin FC in exchange for $100,000 in 2023 general allocation money, the GAM. We'll talk about that in a second. Played the majority of his first season of MLS games and minutes under City SC head coach Bradley Carnell when Carnell was interim head coach with New York Red Bulls in 2020. So he knows the system. He knows how coach wants to play. So this is already like, oh, cool. this is some strategy here. City SC has also acquired attacking midfielder Aziel Jackson from Minnesota United FC. Now, they've been hot. They're new to the scene, but a team that showed like a lot of oomph, if you will. That was in exchange for $150,000 in that 2023 general allocation money, and the club just announced that as well. Jackson is coming off a strong 2022 MLS Next Pro season where he earned Best 11 honors. So this kid is great too. Now, I got a couple other emails, and Michelle, please shine some light on what the heck this means. I have one that says St. Louis City SC has acquired 2023 international spot from Nashville SC for $200,000 in 2023 general allocation money. What the heck is a 2023 international spot?
So I'm learning about this just like you are, but I did do a bunch of reading on this today. So hopefully I digested and am able to download the information that I got. But basically the general allocation money, it's the way that the league makes it easier for teams to acquire players who aren't in the league. So there's different types of allocation money that you can have, and one of them is the general allocation money. So this general allocation money can be traded. So the way that I am digesting this is that City is taking their general allocation money and they're giving it to Nashville for a player that we're going to call TBD, like a player to be acquired later from the international pool. But since we don't have players in St. Louis yet, they can take this money, trade it for a player that they want to acquire.
Interesting. Here's some money that you can spend wherever you want to spend it for this guy,
who will be hopefully a great player eventually. We love TBD here in St. Louis. TBD is one of our favorites.
We've signed TBD from Nashville SC or FC.
Everyone's thrilled.
Speaking of that, we have another TBD international spot that we just signed from CF Montreal for $100,000 in that general allocation money. So we're giving them $100,000 for one of their spots. So what about this draft? How do we compare it to the NHL draft? Somebody mentioned the Seattle Kraken, and I bet you the NHL expansion draft with the Golden Knights and with the Kraken was probably a bit of a new sort of thing, or an education as far as how expansion drafts work to most sports fans.
Absolutely. So right now we're taping this on Tuesday, November 8th. So the trade window opened yesterday and it closes tomorrow on Wednesday, November 9th. And there's a blackout period that will exist. And then the list of players who will be eligible for the expansion draft is going to be released by the MLS on Thursday. So you may remember when the Kraken came along and the Blues were leaving certain players unprotected. Vladimir Tarasenko was shockingly left unprotected. Jaden Schwartz was left unprotected. He was the player that was selected, just as a player that was selected as an example. And then Friday, November 11th, this Friday, everyone needs to set those alarms on their phone, because that's when the expansion draft is happening. The MLS expansion draft is happening Friday, November 11th, and St. Louis City SC is able to select up to 5 players from the player eligible list. So this week, a lot of things happening. You have the trade window that's opening. You have the expansion protected and unprotected lists that are going to be coming out. So you might want to start paying attention to which players other teams around the league are leaving unprotected, because that's the pool of talent that City's going to be able to choose from. And then as of Friday, you will start to see City acquire some more players. They're building that roster up, Moon.
Yeah, I see that. And what I'm reading too, there's 5 rounds. St. Louis City SC may select up to 5 players, claiming only a single player from any one club. So we can't take 2 from LAFC, the champions, 1 per club, and we can select up to 5. St. Louis City SC will be permitted 3 minutes for each selection, no timeouts, and no trades are permitted during the expansion draft.
It's going to be very exciting. And I know that the sporting director for City, Lutz Pfannenstiel, and Bradley Carnell, the head coach, and everyone that's involved in the team ops, they've been scouting these players. This is what they've been doing, is they've been watching tape, they've been watching games. So they're very familiar with the players who are out there in the league and the names that may become available. So I'm sure that they know what they're looking for from a talent standpoint. They're looking for players that might fit their style of play. And I imagine that they while they might take the 3 minutes, Moon, that they have a pretty good grasp on who they're targeting.
Yeah, and it's super interesting too. We could go on about all the details. I was just reading that if a player's contract expires at the end of 2022, so let's say they're a free agent after December anyway, they're still being considered a part of the club's roster. So they are not considered a free agent. And I just learned this too. The following 5 teams that had players selected by Charlotte FC during the 2021 MLS expansion draft are exempt from the 2022 MLS expansion draft. That's Austin FC, Atlanta United FC, DC United, LAFC, and New York City FC. So those are off the table.
Which seems fair that they don't get dinged twice, two years in a row.
Totally. The other 23 returning MLS clubs that competed during this season can protect, like you mentioned, 12 players from their senior and supplemental rosters. Pretty interesting. If a club protects a player, by the way, the club is not obligated to exercise the player's option. So, Michelle, do you know, let's say St. Louis City SC picks a player from your club. Do you know what you would get in exchange?
Tell us, Moon.
You get $50,000 in general allocation money. So that can be heavy. That can really throw some drama into it. Kind of like it did with the NHL draft. This is exciting. This is exciting stuff, not only just for our city, but for the whole league.
And that's not where it ends. So Friday, November 11th is the expansion draft. Then there's more things that are happening the following week. So on November 14th, which is the following Monday, there's a deadline for the clubs to submit a bona fide offer and exercise options. And then after that, 2 days later on the 16th, that's when free agency opens, Moon. So that's when clubs can engage with different players. They can see who's eligible for free agency. And there's just going to be a lot of movement happening, not only with City, but among MLS in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be really exciting.
It is going to be exciting.
Some positive news on our end is that the next podcast that we do, we're going to talk about it with City's sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel. He is going to join us and answer all of our questions and really give us some finely tuned answers on not only the entire process, but how City's been preparing for all of this, what they've been looking for in players, how they've been scouting different players and prepping to build their team. What is the identity of the team going to look like? We can ask him questions about specific player additions. So really looking forward to that. And if you have any questions that you would like us to ask Lutz, ask soccer101@gmail.com.
Ooh, it's going to be a drama-filled weekend. I love it.
Well, Moon, this was a lot of information that was packed into one 30-minute podcast. I feel like we rolled through a lot today, and I'm hoping that people learned something today. I know that there are a lot of great soccer fans in St. Louis that have a great grasp on this, but for those newbies like us that are coming in and they're trying to learn, I hope we gave you a little snackable nugget that you can take home. Like, for instance, Moon, one thing that I'm taking away from this is that my calendar and my alarms are zeroed in on Friday. I believe it starts at 6 p.m. Central Time. It's the expansion draft. That's the first real bit of drama that I think City fans have, is anticipation and excitement of the drama build up to get those names of who's going to be on their team. So my big snackable nugget from this week, expansion draft on Friday.
Yeah, mine too. I learned about this expansion draft when we were kind of putting together some of our prep, and one of the things that I learned is that all the names that I was kind of spying and eyeing from that LAFC team are off the table because they got picked last year. So I learned that, dang it, all that research of me getting excited about, we should pick that player. Those guys are all safe. I do need to add that City added Swedish ringer Rasmus Alm to the roster as well. I neglected to mention him earlier. I don't want Rasmus getting upset with us.
No, welcome to the squad, Rasmus. We're thrilled to have you. We can't wait to have you on this podcast. We saved the best for last. How about that? But no shade to anyone else that joined the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was exciting. I hope you learned a lot. I sure did. And I guess we'll see you next week.
Yeah, for Moon and Michelle, this has been Soccer 101. Thanks for listening.
On November 13th, it's the dawning of a new era when the NFL debuts in Germany, live on NFL Network. Brady and the Bucks.
Touchdown Tampa Bay!
DK and the Seahawks.
Puts the ball up, making the catch!
Wake up and watch with the world. It's Sunday Morning Football. Live from Munich. Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, only on NFL Network.